time is ticking down to US President Donald Trump's delivering of his State of the Union address, coming up just days after the Supreme Court struck down most of his tariffs. Let's go live to Washington. Correspondent Jonathan Kearsley on Capitol Hill. Hi, Jonna. The economy will be front and centre for the president.
Absolutely it will be, Cheng, and quite simply that is because of a number of reasons. One is those tariffs that you mentioned, and we are expected to hear the president talk about this very issue tonight. Just days ago, as you said, the Supreme Court struck down much of his tariffs policy that was so critical to his domestic economic agenda. He's still pushing ahead with the broader 10% plan, not the 15% yet that he touted Friday, but it will be interesting to note exactly what he says and whether or not he is more critical of the Supreme Court judges, who tonight will be sitting just metres from him. He was scathing of those who decided against him just a couple of days ago. So watch this space on what he says on that front tonight. But the other reason the economy is so critical here tonight, Cheng, well, quite simply, it's the number one thing that Americans are worried about. And we are in the year of midterm elections that will ultimately decide the fate of the House and the Senate and whether or not Republicans can hold on to one or both of those. And that would be critical to the last 2 years of Donald Trump's presidency. So clearly the economic agenda from the White House is going to be crucial and critical for the president's State of the Union address here tonight. We're already hearing a tease from the president that there'll be some sort of talk of tax cuts. And I think that's entirely unsurprising given exactly the reasons that I've mapped out for you. But let's, on the tariffs issue, hear from Republican Byron Donalds.
I'll tell you one thing, when it comes to tariff policy, what President Trump has been working to accomplish since he came back to the White House is actually redoing these trade deals that have not been in the interest of the American family, the American company, or the American worker.
And John, there's also the issue of Iran. What can we expect to hear on that front?
Leigh, I think we can expect to hear a number of things. One will be the thinking around what Donald Trump might well do. For weeks, he's been hanging this threat of possible military action over Iran's head. If a deal on nuclear enrichment cannot be struck, those talks are expected to continue in Europe later on this week. But he's already moved the USS Gerald Ford and the USS Abraham Lincoln, some of the most significant aircraft carriers in the world, into the Middle East region. And America has been bolstering its own military credentials and military presence in this region. So maybe we might hear a little bit more from him on that front about what he might plan to do next, because we have seen from the man who has dubbed himself the President of Peace, the idea of using the American military as a position of strength to try and negotiate on various foreign policy fronts. So watch this space over the course of the next couple of hours on what could be a very lengthy speech from the President indeed about what he says about those Middle Eastern issues. There's going to be a couple of other things to watch for tonight, Leigh, and that is going to be the reaction of the Democrats inside the Capitol building. Last year they were vocal, interrupting the American commander-in-chief. Already today, dozens have said that they're going to boycott this event. This is what House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries had to say earlier today.
State of our union under the presidency of Donald Trump is a complete and total disaster. Costs have gone up, job creation has gone down, and ICE is totally out of control.
So while there'll be perhaps a little bit of interest in who won't be there, there'll be significant interest in who will be there, because the State of the Union, traditionally, there are a number of invited guests who will make their way in, and perhaps near the top of that list could be the US men's Winter Olympic gold medal winning hockey team, who was invited into the Oval Office earlier today, even hanging a gold medal around the neck of the president himself as he prepares to deliver what is going to be a historic and perhaps consequential speech from the American president, because, Leigh, there is so much on the line for him here tonight. There is domestic politics, there is international politics, and what could happen with his hold on power over the last couple of years of his presidency could very well hang on the words he uses here tonight.